I, Marinara Man. Tis I. What's good, everyone? Welcome back to Marinara Man. That's me, your host, Marinara Man. Glad to see y'all. Glad to see y'all looking fresh. Now, today, we'll be talking about the Game Awards. Big event coming up this Thursday. Now, I'm sure everyone's already gone out and voted. If not, please vote. I'm sure you're not already tired of hearing that by now, especially us here in America. But the Game Awards are a big celebration, and honestly, after this year, we could all use a good celebration. So, I wanted to talk about my hopes for the show, my hopes for some of the categories, who wins, because honestly, some of the categories I don't know enough about a lot of the people or games even nominated to really have an opinion. Basically, just first glance, kind of, oh, this looks the best, or this looks the most fun in most cases. In a lot of the esports categories, honestly, I don't know anyone, let alone the games. I don't feel like it's validated for me to have a choice in who wins best esports narrator or best esports coach when I know literally nothing about any of them. So I find like it's unfair to them. It's unfair to even break into that. Anyways, enough of the negativity. Let's get into the positivity. One of the categories I want to talk about off the top was best fighting game. I think the nominations this year are very interesting, especially because two of them are basically updates of older games. That Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate and Street Fighter V Championship Edition. Those games, I feel like the only two really in contention. The other three, while being very interesting, have that anime art style. A lot of people like, I love as well. I don't think they're big enough to even get enough nominations to win. It's very cool that they're here. It's very cool to get that nod. But I honestly feel like this year, Mortal Kombat has it in the bag. I remember a couple years ago when this game was announced, not the Ultimate Edition, but the base game was announced a couple years ago at the Game Awards. So that was a lot of fun seeing it. And honestly, if Mortal Kombat wins, I can see something with Ed Boon getting the win. I don't think he'll announce this year because obviously he has a chance of winning. I think that'd be very awkward for him to be like, and the winner is me. That would be extremely awkward, and I wouldn't do it like that, but because it would make it feel fixed. But I can see something with Ed Boon getting the award and there being like ooh, something's coming, and then boom, Injustice 3. That's just my hope. As you can see it by my shirt, I'm a huge Superman fan. I'm a huge DC fan. So I have hopes of seeing Injustice 3. I don't expect to see Injustice 3 at all. But honestly, if it did show up, I would not be disappointed at all. Another category that I want to bring up is best RPG category. Mostly because there's one game above all else that I feel like will win, and there's one game above all else that I feel like should win. The one that will win probably is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, no harm on the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's a great remake. It's a great idea to take this old beloved thing that, honestly, if you look back on, was poorly translated. It's a little confusing. It's hard to get back into now because of the grand hype surrounding it. Looking back, a lot of people loved it for a good reason. So it's a great idea for it to bring forward new ideas and really deliver on those ideas. And I feel like the game did that quite well. So I feel like if it wins, I'm not going to be disappointed. If I feel like if it wins, it's not going to be for a bad reason. The game definitely deserves the win there. However, Persona 5R exists. And it's incredible. It is a game that's over 100 hours long. In most cases, obviously, if you're faster at it, you'll beat it in less time. But it's so long, and I've beaten it already. I've beaten Persona 5 before, and I was so excited to go through it again with all this new content, and just to relive that story and those worlds. And the refined minute to minute isn't a ton, but there is enough new in the game to warrant a re-release, especially with the way that Atlas typically handles the Persona series. They, big out the base game, and if the base game's great, couple years down the line, they'll add some more things and re-release the game back into the world. And Persona 5 was my first experience into that. I wasn't really around for Persona 4, let alone any before them. So Persona 5 being there was the way for me to get into this franchise, and I cannot wait for the inevitability of Persona 6 in 2030. However, Persona 5R deserves the win by a long shot. I have not sped through a game of this length so quickly before. I think it took me like 3 weeks to plow through a game that took 111, 120, 112, somewhere around the ballpark of that. The base game portion of this took me 90, and then there was at least 20 more hours. I'm so excited that I got this nod. I'm saddened that it's not in best overall game, but I understand because it's a re-release with more content, that's why. However, I still hope that it wins this category at least. Now, leading into that, Game of the Year, just because the Game Awards gave it to whoever, last year they gave it to Sekiro, the year before they gave it to God of War, if your favorite game from the past 2 years wasn't either of those, it doesn't really matter. Your Game of the Year is your Game of the Year. You shouldn't let someone else tell you that it's wrong because they liked a different game more. For instance, my last 2 Game of the Years were not God of War and Sekiro. I still haven't played Sekiro. Maybe it is my Game of the Year. And while God of War was great, even in that library that one's nominated, I liked Spider-Man a little bit more. Celeste was great. I don't know if I liked it more. Red Dead 2 was obviously incredible. They were all up there, and they were all in contention, and that's what made that show so interesting, and I think that's what's happening again this year. The outlier this year is, a lot of people say it's Doom Eternal. A lot of people say that they're very surprised that it's even here. I'm not as much. I think that Doom 2016 being as revered as it was, Doom Eternal, while bringing in some elements of stuff that they didn't really touch on in 2016, I think added a lot more oomph to all the action. And then there's the other outlier for me is Hades. I was super surprised. I know people love Hades. I have not gotten to it yet. This is the only one of these games that I have not been able to try out. And I definitely want to. I definitely want to be able to check it out. However, I've not been able to yet, and I won't be able to until the Game Awards are done and passed. I don't think it'll win, even though a lot of people want that indie hit to come out. A lot of people thought that way with Celeste as well. I don't think the game has a big enough shot of pulling those same AAA punches that other companies can to get people to really vote. It doesn't have the same kind of recognition. It doesn't have the same kind of fan base. Unlike another game that has a very divisive fan base, which is The Last of Us 2. And The Last of Us 2, I think is good. I haven't completely finished the story yet. I know that I shouldn't say it until I'm done. There's some story beats in it that even I'm not a huge fan of that have already happened. I'm not going to spoil anything. A lot of people say, I'm not going to spoil, and then they'll say something that's totally a spoiler. But I'm not going to say anything else about it. I do like the game. If it wins, it wins. I think a lot of people will be upset if it wins. I think a lot of people will be upset if it loses. And I'll be interested to see where it lies after the voting and after the show is done. A less divisive one is, like I said, Final Fantasy VII Remake, I was talking about before. Final Fantasy VII Remake was really well received. When it came out, obviously it had all this hype for years. Even before it was announced, this kind of idea of, Final Fantasy VII might be coming back. And Final Fantasy, even before that, Final Fantasy VII should be coming back. And I want to see Cloud again. I want to see Tifa again. And now we can. Now we can see Cloud and Tifa and Sephiroth and just get to relish in the beauty of the whole thing. Now that it's split into parts, each part can really hold its own weight as separate games. I think that's an exciting prospect going forward with Final Fantasy. I don't know if there'll be one more part. I don't know if there'll be 2 more parts. I have no idea how many parts they're going to bring out of this. Now, The last two, honestly, in my mind, are the two duking it out this year, are Ghost of Tsushima and Animal Crossing New Horizons. When you think of 2020, and you think of the game where it helped the most people in 2020, if this was a popularity contest, Animal Crossing would win hands down. There's no competition there. Animal Crossing ruled the internet for months after it came out. There was no competition for it. It came out the same day Doom Eternal came out, a very anticipated game in its own right, and it didn't stand a candle to the power that Animal Crossing had. It was unstoppable, and I was in on the hype. I was there day one, and I loved it. It hit right at the perfect time. This is the perfect kind of game to come out right when the world was collapsing. It was perfect. It was perfect timing. However, a game came out right in the heat of summer by Sucker Punch, which is an incredible studio, made an incredible game about an incredible time period with incredible combat, and I want to say incredible a ton more times because that's exactly the word that describes Ghost of Tsushima. That's my pick for Game of the Year. Absolutely. There's no other choice, in my opinion. Obviously, there's other choices. There's at least 5 other choices. But when it comes to what I want, what I love, Ghost delivered through and through. Is one of the only games I've pushed myself to platinum. Ghost is a pretty easy platinum in my opinion. That's why I went for it. But I'm totally happy I did. I'm totally happy I took that plunge. And that's definitely my Game of the Year this year. Now, in terms of everything else surrounding the show, I really hope that they let the awards speak for themselves. I really hope that Jeff Keighley lets the nominations, be read out slower, lets the people who won get to speak. Because in many times in the past, they've just, this person won, congrats, moving on. And clap for 4 seconds and move immediately on to the next category, which I doesn't feel like that's super fair. Just the idea of let the nominations and the awards be the reason we're here at the Game Awards. That being said, moving into the trailers that are definitely going to happen, I am excited to see what they bring. I said last year was crazy because the awards didn't really get to speak that much, and there was not many trailers there. Let's hope that people bring it. Let's hope that different companies bring it. Obviously, with the start of a new console generation, I will hope that different companies have great things to show off, especially since we didn't have an E3 this year. Speaking of new console generations, I'll have a new video up soon talking about my hopes for the new console generation, what kind of things I want to see, what kind of things hope happen. I'm super excited to be able to do this. I'm excited to be able to talk to you guys, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again at some point.